So let's make a start with introductions. So I'm Janet Ford, and I'm a development manager at CNET. Julie?
I'm Julie Robinson Joyce, and I work in the commissioning team in adult social care.
Thank you. Wendy?
I'm Wendy Collins. I'm a project support at CNET.
And Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Nichol. I'm Contract and Quality Officer for Adult Social Care for the Council.
Thank you, that's great. So first of all, can I go over to Julie, please? For the vision, we'll just share the slide.
Oh, oh no, I've forgotten what to do.
Okay.
Whilst we're waiting, folks, can I just say welcome to everybody as well. It's lovely to see so many people on the call. I appreciate that we've had, since we last ran this commissioning process, we've had some tough times with COVID and everything. So I know we had some sessions where we caught up with people during the midst of the COVID crisis, but just want to say thank you to everybody for everything that you did during that phase as well, to support the people who come along to your sessions. So obviously we're running the process again. There aren't dramatic changes or anything to the criteria or anything. So the vision is very much as Health and Wellbeing's vision was previously, with that strapline of wanting people to be able to be happy, healthy and at home. And obviously the kind of work that you guys do with your projects is supporting people to get out of the house, get some company, not be quite so lonely and isolated, and therefore have a much better chance of being able to stay at home, which is where we all want to be, really, isn't it? And it's also very much about working together to create a local place where people can make choices about their health and well-being. So your projects are very much focused, are very local, very grassroots by and large. And so that all contributes to people being able to have those connections to their local place. And we very much want people to be able to make their own choices. And I know lots of you have done, over the lifetime of these grant awards, have made an effort to kind of really make sure that you're asking people about the kind of things that they want to do, rather than kind of presenting things that you think would be good for them to do. Because we do really want these projects to be places where people come and have fun and have a good time and enjoy being there and making those connections with other people. So Wendy, could I have the next? Thank you. We'll make sure that these slides are available for you as well. So if you're struggling to see them or whatever, don't worry, you'll be able to, we'll make sure a copy is available to you later. So these are kind of Health and Wellbeing's department's strategic aims, but they fit very aptly with the kind of work that you folks do as well. So give you a bit of a kind of idea of the general context of the overall criteria, where we're trying to go with this piece of work. So the focus is very much on what people can do rather than what they can't do. So very much about people's strengths and focusing on those and helping people stay well, look after themselves and be independent. Not providing support that people don't need at that point, and not trying to take over people's independence. So again, I know through the lifetime of these grant agreements, lots of you have done things about encouraging people to get up and be moving within the session, go get their own cup of tea rather than be waited on, because all those things, if people keep moving, then it does help them stay fit and well, and that helps them stay independent. I know some of you have found people within your groups who have amazing strengths and life experiences that you've been able to use to enhance your group and really kind of celebrate people's strengths. Excuse me. So also it's all about partnership working as well. So I know on some of the sessions that we ran during the COVID period, you guys were kind of sparking off each other and really getting ideas from each other. And we want to keep encouraging that you're not working in isolation, that you are working with each other and ourselves and health as well, ideally, so that we can respond to whatever people's needs are, and those needs in the round, not just looking at one isolated area. And making sure that we use our collective resources as effectively and as sustainably as we can. And I appreciate that this is a very small amount of money that goes into your groups. And generally you are kind of masters and mistresses of being able to manage that money really effectively. Just stressing again that idea about upholding people's rights and choices. We're not here to dictate to people about how they should live their life. It's very much about us making sure that we're facilitating them living the life they want to choose and helping them insofar as is possible to kind of reduce some of those limitations that age or disability can put on people sometimes, and for us to still make sure that people have got those choices in their life. And also looking at Bradford District, so we are an amazing place, very diverse, very different to other places. And we want to be able to enhance those communities with the work that you do, link people to each other, celebrate people's diversity. Not see that as a weakness, but really celebrate the diverse district that we live in, and do whatever we can to support people to kind of to live together comfortably, understand each other's cultures, whether that's about ethnicity or whether that's about sexuality or any of the other protected characteristics under the Equality Act. And also we want to improve people's experience by increasing our understanding of the impact and the benefit of what we do. So I kind of understand that when it comes around to sending us in those 6 monthly reports, you're probably kind of groan inwardly. I'm sure it's not the best part of what you do, but that does really help us to kind of understand what's happening. And we're very conscious that we haven't provided as much support, especially over the last couple of years when things have been difficult, to kind of give you feedback on what works well, what's good, ideas that other providers maybe have got to tackle some of the challenges you're facing. And that's one of the reasons that we've commissioned CNET to support us with this area of work, so that we can improve on that and we can be a bit more effective at making sure you have feedback on your monitoring and you've got opportunities to improve people's experience by understanding what works well and what doesn't work so well. Your feedback kind of gives us, hopefully if you're looking at what's working well, that gives you an opportunity to innovate and improve, but also it does us as well. And we're very conscious that your tender process last time was a real chore for people. And so it won't be that same process this time. So hopefully that will make it a little bit easier for people to get your applications in and for those to be considered. So I think I'm going to pass over to Janet now, but I'm staying around, so I'll be here for questions at the end as well. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Julie. Very comprehensive overview there. Thank you very much. I'll just tell you a little bit about CNET's role. From the 1st of April, we were commissioned, as Julie said, to administer the local community support grants, formally, obviously the day opportunities. And it's part of the council's voluntary and community sector support and improvement programme, for which Community Action are delivering quite a lot of the work in terms of training, capacity building, other support for voluntary and community groups. And we're looking at business support. The element here is obviously the grant facilitation. the eligibility and criteria for these grants, although the name's changed, is nothing much has changed there. We're not making massive changes. We've worked very closely with Julie and Lindsay to make sure everything's fair, as it's always been, transparent, and that the money is split around the district in a fair way. Can we just look at the next one, Wendy? So just a few headlines. So we can fund any organisation that is not for private profit, organisations that are serving the residents of Bradford and district. Maximum per project has gone up from 10,000 to 10,446 per project, with a maximum of 3 projects for each organisation. There is an exception to that. If you're applying for projects for both older people and people with learning difficulties, you can submit 3 projects per client group. So obviously the amount doubles. We'll cover all of the constituencies, the localities, the neighbourhoods, and make sure there's a fair allocation as far as we can. We'll also look at projects looking at communities of interest and culturally different communities. They may want separate provision. So we'll be looking at all of that, and the panels will be representative of people in the district that kind of know the local area. So we'll have people from social care, the councils, neighbourhood services, and voluntary and community sector people who are aware of the area. So that's, it'll all be very very transparent and done in a very fair way. We are seeing it have administered millions of pounds worth of grants, and so we've learned a lot along the way. With the support of our colleagues, we'll make sure that it's done fairly. So next we'll just have a quick whiz through, it's okay, quick whiz through expectations. This will all be outlined in the guidance so that you're responding to the questions accordingly. So we'll be looking for organisations who offer activities that are accessible, welcoming, and most of all probably fun and enjoyable. We want projects that encourage people to support themselves and to support each other, build relationships, make friendships, as always happens when we get people together in a room, which is, obviously what we missed for a couple of years with the pandemic, or for a year at least. We want people to be invigorated and motivated, letting them explore, finding out what interests are and discussing what, new ways of doing group activities, new things that people want to do. So again, talking to the people that wish to join and finding out what they want to do, particularly considering the needs of carers where appropriate, because that's always a difficult ask of them. Excuse me. Right, so the projects also, we want people to be out there in the community, which is why we're working at a local level. I mean, we can often identify who's involved, who's not involved, and try and encourage people with flyers and visits and, welcome sessions, things like that, to try and get some new people into the group, maybe a bit of hand holding. Initially, just till they get, a lot of people have lost the confidence or become more frail, so they may need some extra support to encourage them to take part. Finally, obviously, we'll be looking at projects that can evidence value for money in the activities. That's always kind of something that gets considered. So no surprises there. I'm sorry, my voice is croaky. I don't know what's happened. Can we go on a little bit? Thank you. Oh, thank you, Wendy. So, process and the timeline. We'll be putting the link, we're finalising the guidelines today and tomorrow. Obviously, if we pick anything up from today's session, we'll make amendments, and then we'll circulate the link. We'll put it on our website, and then we'll also circulate it, make sure everybody knows where to look. We'll have, we're calling it a clarification log. It's similar to what used to be on your tender, but it's just going to be on the website. So if anyone asks us a question, there'll be a log on there, and there'll be the question and the answer, so that everyone's got access to the same support and information. We'll be closing that log down at 5 p.m. on Monday, 14th of November, which is just a week before the deadline. So I think plenty of time there for people to get, to get their submission in. We'll be evaluating all of the applications week commencing Monday the 28th of November. And then we'll be awarding the grants week commencing 12th of December. So you'll all be notified. Anyone that's put an application in will be notified whether they're successful or not before the end of the year, before the Christmas period. And that obviously gives time for you to look at alternatives. If for any reason, unfortunately, people are unsuccessful, they can kind of look at new ways to keep groups going, or to forward their ideas through another fund. And we'll give as much support as we can during that period. The new grants will start on the 1st of April 22, April Fool's Day, which I think is a Sunday. Oh, sorry, it's 23. That's me. That's me having a backward moment there. So sorry about that. Which I think is a Sunday. So
It's a Saturday.
So it's a Saturday, is it? Right, a weekend. So yeah, obviously that week. Just finally, we'll have a look at, before we do the questions. There is plenty of support available in the district. As I said earlier, Community Action are delivering the support for the community and voluntary sector groups in terms of training, capacity building. So help with constitutions, rules, checking out the latest policies, anything that needs tweaking before you put your bid in, they'll be able to help you with. We've listed their names and the details there for you, which obviously we'll share on the website as well. Plus CNET have just produced a number of how-to guides on how to write an application, and that can be downloaded at this link, which again we'll be sharing with you. So lots of support there. And I think, unless my colleagues have anything further to add that I've missed, we can go on to Q&A session. Julie, Lindsay, have I missed anything?
I just thought a couple of sort of explanations. So obviously this pot of money has been called Day Opportunities for a while. And you may wonder why on earth we're bothering to change the name, and it's a very practical reason. Obviously this particular pot of money is kind of grassroots community organisations that we're looking to fund. We have another pot of money that's called Daytime Activities Provider List, and that's a tender process that people go through, and if they're successful, then they would be supporting people who have had a social work assessment and been funded that way, as some of you will be aware. Some of our colleagues call all of these various different things day opportunities, and it gets quite confusing within our department. So we're just trying to look for another name that kind of explains, that these are local grassroots community activities kind of that we're looking for people to get to join in with. I also wanted to touch on a couple of things as well. Obviously, this is a finite pot of money, as pots of money always are. The council is kind of experiencing the same challenges as individuals and you as organisations are all facing around the cost of living challenges that we've got at the moment. And we kind of want you to kind of, before you put your bids in, reflect whether A, you need this money, B, this is the most appropriate pot of money, and realistically how much money you do need to run this service. If everybody kind of put in the maximum amount, then we probably couldn't fund, well, we undoubtedly won't be able to fund everybody who applies. If people are bidding based on what they genuinely need, and I appreciate for some of you that may well be the maximum amount. If there's a kind of a bit of variety in the funding, we probably would have a much better chance of funding everybody who applies and having a wider range of activities for people. I know as well that some groups over the period of time of the pandemic, maybe numbers have gone down and they're very small now. If that is the case, then please give some thought about whether you actually want to combine with another group, run your group jointly, put your bid in that way, help the money spread a little bit further around like that. I can see in the chat, yeah, it's 1.3 million in the funding pot, which sounds a lot of money, doesn't it? But there are a lot of projects funded out of this pot, so it is spread quite widely. So I just want people to kind of have a think about that before they put it in. I know when something says a maximum, your instinct is for everybody to apply for it, but that will mean less groups will be successful. So I'll pass back over to, unless Lindsay wants to come in now.
No, that's fine, Julie. I think you've covered everything I would have said. Thank you.
Great, okay. So pass to you.
Whoops.
Sorry, pass it to Janet to host the Q&A session.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for that. Very useful. Okay, so does anybody, if you can raise your hand, if you can raise your hand, please. Sorry,
Just ignore the chat. I'm just going
okay,
to.
yeah. if you want to ask a question, and we'll do our best to answer you. Right, first of all,
hi, Janet.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Just a couple of questions. I'm well, thank you. And I think it'd probably be something that everybody's going to ask. I know one of the things that you don't fund or you didn't fund previously was around travel and food. And then obviously taking into consideration things like cost of living now and, you know, everything going on about your food and your fuel and rising interest rates and so forth. Is that still the case with the funding bids?
Yeah, so the council's kind of position on this is the council has kind of a transport framework, not a commissioning framework, but transport framework that sets out the criterion. People's transport is paid for in circumstances where they have an assessed need and it can't be met by any other means. So I can't unilaterally change council policy, so it does still apply to this. And I do really appreciate that people might be coming to the groups who are really struggling at home. And what I would really like to do is for us to kind of, when we're aware of that, to look at what possible ideas we can kind of come up with to help people resolve that. A little bit more money has gone into advice provision recently, I understand. I'm not involved in that, but I've been told that. So as you know, maybe we can look at options like having one of your group sessions as having somebody coming down and providing benefits advice. I know years ago, when I was an advice worker, I've done that at lots of little community groups. You know, getting people in who can give advice on how you make your, you know, which things cost the most money to run and how you can make things run more energy efficiently, things like that. I
think it's more based on people that we're missing out.
Yeah.
you know, you're hard to reach, and in particular since COVID, and it's working with that age group, which is elderly. I mean, you know, we're probably based more within the South Asian community, although we work with everyone, but it's fine. But for those that can come in, which is brilliant, it's those that don't come in. And then the capacity is, you know, you might only be 10,000 isn't a huge amount when you only think that you've only got one part-time worker to be able to work with a project. Yes, there might be volunteers, or you can partner with other organizations, but how much work can be done? So I think that's really where travel comes from. It's that support. How do we get them out? But yeah, it is.
And I feel like I know that everybody who's kind of involved in these kind of projects are by their nature the kind of people who want to solve things for people, but with one project and one pot of money, we can't solve that for absolutely everybody. No. And the council does have an anti-poverty strategy underway and plans around cost of living increases. Obviously, we've had money from household support fund. Yeah. Individuals could apply for.
No, that's fine.
Hopefully we'll have some more money like that over the winter, so there will be pots of money that people can apply for, and maybe we need to be more proactive. I mean, obviously we have that as a department, we have that weekly newsletter that goes out that I think most of you get, but I know a lot of the time it is very focused on the care homes and home support, so I suspect as time goes on probably less people have read it, but we'll make sure that stuff goes out in there when there is money like the household support fund available for people.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just another one. Is it a 12-month bid, or is
no,
it
2 years?
It's the 2 years. Yes, that's
and
great.
if we can wangle more, we'll wangle more.
Oh, brilliant.
Before we publish.
That's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that answers Laura's question that was in the chat box as well. And I think there's some, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but there's some warm spaces or warm places, which some of you funding that's been launched by the council for groups that are welcoming people in that, you know, possibly, you know, don't want to heat the homes or can't. So I think it's worth checking out the council's website to take a look at that as well. It's warm places or spaces, sorry.
And I appreciate it's warm spaces, yeah. I appreciate the issue, the transport issue isn't resolved by this, but obviously the libraries are open. Probably other venues as well. But anyway, sorry, next, we've got another one. I'm not sure what order we're doing.
So Taj, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Hamid Taj. My question is around the geographical spread across the district, because obviously I'm from the Bradford South area office, and obviously we were previously involved in the panels, etc. So just to raise awareness and highlight the fact that, you know, if the groups are putting in 2 applications or 6 applications, we just need to be bearing in mind spread across the district, and to ensure, you know, that there are services across the district. And, you know, if we just raise that, it's not really a question, but just to make sure there is that consistency, and we're not just funding, you know, one group with 6 applications and then other areas there's no groups able to deliver. So my issue was just about making sure
so I can reassure you on that, Taj. So that's in the guidance notes that there'll be geographical spread, and we quite deliberately last time, you know, made sure we had a certain number within each ward for older people. There's not as big a pot for LD, so we can't make it ward based, but it is it will be constituency based, so you don't need to have any worries. And it's already we've already had the conversation with the area coordinators about involving people. We just haven't got the practicalities sorted of who that will be, but we would still have neighbours involved, because we do really value, you know, your experience of your knowledge of your local areas.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Taj. We've just got one in the chat box here asking if the funding's limited to organisations of a certain size. We are looking for locally based organisations. We haven't put an income cap on as such, but we will be looking for, because obviously some people received quite a good chunk of money through the pandemic, and that would kind of swerve things a little bit for them. So I think following the discussion, and I do need to clarify this, I think we said we wouldn't be putting a cap on, but I will have to clarify that. That is on income, sorry. I'll clarify that within the next couple of days, and it'll be finalised on Friday, before Friday.
But to make it clear, it will be a priority will be for organisations that are grassroots community organisations. And I appreciate, you know, that could be a tiny organisation and that could be a medium-sized organisation as well. But yeah, it is local community grassroots organisations will be the priority.
Thank you.
Carol.
So Carol, please, Carol Beardmore.
Hello, thank you. Can I ask, please, Julie, you've just said that there wasn't as much money in the LD pot. Is there a
No, I don't mean there's a reduction in the pot,
Right,
but
okay.
it's just when these pots were kind of set up however many years ago, there's an awful lot more older people in the district than there are people with a learning disability. So
Yeah.
it's not that the pot's reduced, it hasn't.
Right.
It's just that the amount of the funding there is for older people is more so, and this really is the only pot that we have for those kind of community activities for older people.
Yeah.
But no, there isn't a cut or anything.
Okay, thank you. And that my other question would be, so is the process going to be via your tender, or is it going to be via a different process?
No, so CNET are going to administer this process, so it won't be through your tender, partly because we have kind of listened to people who found it really difficult, and it's a you know, a small amount of money for a grant. So I'll let Janet come in to explain what process CNET are going to use to administer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, so the process will be, we have a website. There'll be an application pack on there, and it will have the guidelines in a PDF, and it will have the application form as a Word document. And also on the same page will be the, I've forgotten the word.
The log.
The log, yeah, the clarification log. So all the information will be in one place. You'll also, if you have any difficulty with the website, Wendy, her details would be available, and you'll be able to request the application form and the guidance and the log from Wendy, and she'll send it to you directly to your inbox. Submitting the bid will be by email. There won't be any downloading, it will be by email to Wendy. So that's basically it. You'll be informed via email. So we're kind of using kind of the more traditional ways. We haven't gone electronic this time. I know a lot of the funders are doing that, but we kind of asked around, and for this next 2 years, we decided to use the process that I've just described. So if there's any questions about that, we can pick those up again today. But is that okay?
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So the next question person is Vanda Greenwood. Hello, Vanda.
Might have gone away.
She might have. She's left.
Might have gone away.
She might have.
I'm here. I just can't get my video working. I'm not entirely sure why, but I'm sure.
Well, we can
don't
hear
need to
you,
see me,
Vanda,
do you?
so.
We can hear you. Yeah, good. Yeah. Oh, here we are. So I'm representing Rose Dementia Group. We run 2 sessions a month. The rent is £35 per session, so obviously that's £70 a month. So I was wondering if that would fit the criteria. And also we're looking at running some trips for the people that have got dementia, day outs, and that kind of thing. So I just wondered if both of those would fit the criteria or not. So it's
I mean,
really
without
rental
kind of
and
seeing a
trips.
submission, I wouldn't really want. I mean, without kind of seeing a submission, I wouldn't really want. I wouldn't want. Vanda, will you go on mute? I think it's causing a bit of an echo. Vanda, will you go on mute? Thanks. I think without seeing a submission, we won't want to say definitely yes or no, but it sounds in the, you know, sounds within the remit of these of this particular grant on the basis of that little bit of information. Obviously, the first question that would come to my mind is, if you're already running, what would, you know, how you're kind of managing that without having additional funding? Because as I said kind of early on, this pot of money will not stretch to kind of fund every organisation in the district, unfortunately. So that would be kind of one of my questions to put back to you to consider. But yeah, a group for older people with dementia would seem on the face of it to fit within the remit.
Thank you.
I've just got a couple in the chat box here. One is the funding decision based on the whole application, or will you fund selected projects within a submission? They will be scored by project as far as I'm aware. Again, I'll get that clarified.
Yeah.
So if you put in for 2 or 3 and you only get 1 or 2, that's how it works. And the other one was, I think have we already answered? So if you received funding in this round that's been delivered now, yes, you may reapply for the next round. So that's that one. And who have I got next, Wendy? Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, this is Sarah and Charlene from the Join Project. I know it sounds basic, but can you reapply for what you're already doing and what we've already been doing? A continuation funding, essentially.
Yeah, there's no restriction on applying for that. Obviously, it is a competitive process. So if somebody else's scores higher than yours, there's no guarantee you would be refunded. But no, you can reapply, yeah. I think you've gone on mute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that is really, yeah, thank you very much.
So next question from Louise, please. You're on mute, Louise.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, well, I'm from outside the box in Ilkley. We provide a range of support for people with learning disabilities. 2 quick questions from me. One is, has there been any opportunity to kind of draw together learning from the programme as it's run to date? And if so, is that available to applicants in any way, shape or form? And then my second one is about, we know that the kind of health and well-being needs of our client community are quite significantly changed as a result, largely as a result of the COVID pandemic and the impacts of that. But it's a question about, is there any district-wide needs assessment of the kind of priority client groups for the fund? And if so, where might that be?
So CNET have done some engagement work with groups.
Right.
I don't know whether it's me who's causing the...
Sorry.
It's gone back off again. So yes, CNET have done some of that. I'll be honest with you. A lot of it is is about food, transport and your tender. So I'm not sure that there's an awful lot in there of what people have told us that would give you a massive amount of kind of feedback. I guess there isn't a specific piece of needs analysis for this particular project. There's lots of information out there that we all know people have become more isolated, lost the confidence, lost some skills, all that kind of thing. And the whole criteria for this area of work was very much focused around that area anyway. It was all very much about people being given an opportunity to get out, make connections, maybe make some friendships, and maybe enjoy those friendships outside of the actual planned group.
Yeah.
The focus is much more on those people who won't get funding for statutory provision.
Yeah.
So this funding pot isn't meant to duplicate projects that can be funded out of the daytime activities provider list.
That. Yeah.
People with a statutory need. So I guess in terms of priority group, it's people who don't have a statutory need, really. I feel like there were some things within that question that I haven't managed to answer completely there, Louise. Have I missed anything?
No, I think that's fine. So just on age eligibility, what is it?
So there's a pot of money that is for older people. So I mean, that's traditionally always been over 50, to be honest. And then I appreciate, you know, I'm over 50, and so, but I think in terms of needs, different people's needs are different, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for LD, it would be, it doesn't have an age range on it. It's adults, anyway, adults, I guess, is the age.
Adult.
Yeah, adults.
Okay. So could it be young adult?
Well, it's kind of, obviously it's adult social care who's funding it. So if somebody who's 14, 16, no, but you know, above 18 and above,
18 and above, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Julie. Can I now have a question from Sonia, please? Hi, Sonia.
Hello. I'm sorry, I am going to have to bring the elephant that's in the room to everybody's attention. So people that need to access these provisions to stay happy and healthy and well can't get to them. And a big hook is the food. So we've just done a questionnaire in preparation for our befriending service, which again, after amazing 12 years worth of lottery funding, we're having to go back again and ask them to refund a much needed, well-used service that's keeping people safe and well at home, because as a whole district, we still haven't got our head around the importance of quite a low-cost service that does keep people out of hospital and keeps them well. And a big part of the feedback that's come through is access to the activities and a bit of food when they get there, because actually they're the things that they are struggling with. And I totally hear what you said, Julie, about actually you can't override the issues around transport, but I think these are the people that don't quite meet the statutory requirement. They're in the gap. So I'm not asking you to resolve it with this pot of money, but I think that's got to go back. And again, your point that you raised, Louise, actually around age, if it was Louise, the identified gaps that come out of social prescribing in quite a broad part of the district, obviously we don't deliver in all of the district, is actually for services for 40 plus. You know, again, that 40 to 50 age group and men in particular are still getting a pretty raw deal of how we structure funding and grant programmes. So again, I'm not asking you to resolve it here, and this grant's amazing, and I'm sure there'll be some fantastic stuff that are done as a result of it, but I just think we can't keep ignoring that stuff. It's critical.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll take those points on board. The thing I do want to stress is this isn't the only funding stream that comes out of the council, and there has been a lot of funding from public health around mental health, including for men. So I'm just very conscious we can't ever solve everything in the district with one pot of money, but I will feed those comments back into the system. Thanks.
Thank you, Sonia and Julie. I'm just going to read one from the chat box, and it said, if too many people apply but projects are strong, would you ask people to reduce the amount they're asking for, i.e. reduce the number of sessions, etc.? I'm not quite
I'd be
sure
really interested in hearing people's your views actually. Like, what would you feel if it was a case of, I mean, it's almost inevitable there will be too many applications for the amount of money. That's the nature of funding streams generally. But I mean, how would you feel about that? Would you rather we came back to you and kind of said, if everybody shaves off a couple of £100, you know, another group gets funded? Or what would your views be?
to comment?
So
Louise.
Yeah. In days gone by, because I'm so old, I can remember the good old days of the European Social Fund. They used to ask on European Social Fund revenue-based programmes as part of the application process for you to identify whether you could reduce your project by, and I think the categories were something like 10%, 25%, 50%, and whether it would be still be viable. I think 50% everybody would have said no, clearly it's not viable. But also but against the lesser levels of reduction, what the impact of that would be on what you're proposing to do. And you had to complete that in order for the application to be accepted. So it did make you think as an applicant, okay, I've done my budget for the project. I understand what I want to do, but if I absolutely had to take a 10%, as an example, a 5% or 10% reduction, you've done that thinking as to whether it's still doable or not, and if so, how much reshaping you'd have to do. I don't know whether that's useful or not, but that's how they used, 20 years ago, that's how they used to do it under European social funding.
I think
I'll say no more before I make myself very unpopular.
I didn't put my hand up, but can I go? Sorry.
Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hey, yeah.
Laura.
Sorry, I asked the question and then I saw some comments in the comment box about how it would make more sense to put in a properly costed application, which I agree with. I think I was more thinking if you came back and said, so we need to give you 500 less, that we'd then maybe fundraise for that separately. Yeah. As an option, rather than getting no money at all.
Thank you. That's given us something to kind of reflect on, really. I see as well, before Laura's question, there was a question about appropriate activities. So we haven't prescribed activities, but if it kind of helps you, the kind of things that people often do is they might have, I think there's an art group in there. People might have a cook and eat session. Often people, to run the cook and eat session, they maybe get the food from Fair Share or somewhere like that. So I mean, they're kind of many and varied. Maybe people can put some thoughts. I'm struggling to remember them all off the top of my head, sorry. But if anybody wants to stick something in that they fund out of that, sometimes they're just, it's a group of older people getting together, having a cup of coffee and a natter and doing a different activity every time. Sometimes it's people, there's some sewing groups, there's knitting groups, there's men's groups, there's some of those focus on renovating kind of a woodwork kind of session, but yeah, I mean, it's many and varied, really.
So another question from the chat box, if that's okay. Whilst we target our work to older people, we often have requests from younger people who are living with mental or physical health difficulties, or from carers who are younger. Can they be included where there is a space in the group?
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible about that. I don't want to be really prescriptive, and I would hate to get to a situation where a carer brings somebody and then we're saying, oh, I'm really sorry, you can't stay. And they have to go away and fill the time for a couple of hours and then come back for that person when they don't want to do that. I appreciate they might want to. So, yeah, I mean, this is a small amount of money and we do not monitor this quite as rigorously. So we're certainly not going to kind of come down to a group and say, oh, my goodness, you've got one person here who looks 40. But what on earth are you doing? But equally on the other, partly because there might really actually be somebody who just looks really young, we'll really offend them, won't we? But the other kind of side of that is, you know, obviously this pot of money is primarily for older people. So if you're doing exactly what Laura says and you just got a couple of other people who are staying, then yeah, great. We want to be inclusive, but you know, if everybody there is 15, then we've kind of got a problem because, yeah. Does that make sense? Any thumbs? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. So can we now go on to Jane Lees, who has a question for us?
I haven't got a question. It was just, I wanted to react to the discussion a little bit earlier about shaving off amounts. I kind of, in a sense, feel that isn't really in the spirit of, you know, I mean, I've also been around a long time, haven't I, Julie? And, you know, I remember that time when the council said that they were going to do full cost recovery, and then they had to backtrack because they couldn't afford it. And I think, you know, for me, it's about the other things that you've said earlier. It's about not applying for 3 if you don't need to do 3 projects, because, you know, if one organisation's applying for 3 projects and another person doesn't get a project, and there's, you know, you could argue that maybe they were on a similar par, I would assume you would probably choose the one that's applied for 1 project, because then it's spreading it around a bit more. And also, you know, about what you said about not necessarily asking for the whole 10,000, but, you know, for many years, we did used to get a lot more funding to do this same work. And, you know, clearly our costs haven't gone down at all. And we're already having to, if we want to do what we think people want, we're already having to find money to cover the cost of food and other things. So I don't think it's reasonable or realistic in a couple of days, which is when you're going to launch it, to come up with a way of doing that would be fair and reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in the chat box, we've got one, someone's asking if we can set up a Facebook group or similar, so we can reach out to each other, looking for people who might be interested in working together, such as smaller groups working with larger groups. I assume you mean, you know, pre-application. I'm not sure whose question this is. Julie. So I'm just trying to think how that would work and how we could make it work in a fair way. I think we'll have to have a think about that, and if there's anything we can do to support collaboration, we'll definitely look into that. So we'll get back on the Q&A log as to if that's happening and how we can get involved in it, and if we can help in any way. And then we've got, is it adult or 14 plus that is often used as the age range? Pauline, that's a question from Pauline.
Yeah, Yeah,
think
really
so.
quickly, it's adult. It's adult services, the funding, so it would be coming from children's if it was from 14.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Julie.
And then it's about minimum size of group, isn't it? I guess it's what's viable, isn't it? I kind of think there comes a point where maybe the group's so small that you kind of think, is this just a group of friends meeting who could have a coffee in a cafe, you know, for a couple of quid, so maybe 3 quid, kind of instead. So we haven't set a minimum size, but I guess we would, along the same lines as I've said before, we'd ask you to kind of be reasonable. If your group is so small that there's like half a dozen people in that group, I'm not sure that really is a viable group that really needs funding from the council anymore. I would suggest that if you're that sort of size, 6, 10, something like that, that you start thinking about, do you want to merge with another group? Do you want to kind of look at that group simply people meeting anyway? Is it something you really need funding for? And it might be something that in the lifetime, well, it will be in the lifetime of this funding, if your group gets to a point where it's kind of unsustainable, we would be having that conversation with you about that. Does that answer it okay, Mary?
Yeah, no, I was just curious because some of the activities we were thinking of would work better with a not such a big group, that was all. So just so specifically for us, a smaller group, cohesive smaller group would work really well. That was, and I was just curious to know whether that would be okay, or whether you would be looking for bigger groups.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So there's someone here asking, once the activities are funded, can we have some kind of directory that we can refer people to? I think there's something already in place. I think there is the community action, I don't know if it's still called DEVA, database of all funding groups, not just through this funding stream. But there's also Connect to Support, and Julie, I think you probably know.
On Connect to Support, there's a community directory, and it's a requirement of your funding that you make sure that you're on that directory. So yeah, it kind of exists, and to be honest, there are a lot of directories out there. They're probably more than than kind of yeah, we probably could do with less rather than more. They are online ones, but and I appreciate that causes a challenge for some people, but equally, you know, they're all resources that are printable from that. But again, I suppose that's money. But those online directories definitely exist already. Yeah.
Wanted to do a directory of directories because there were quite a lot, you know, kind of in the last 10 years, but like, you know, they do go out of date quite quickly, even the online ones. So yeah, the Connect to Support is kept up to date as far as I'm aware. So thank you for that.
That's it. There's no more
that's so
just something about as a freelancer who doesn't get paid for bid writing. I mean, you really don't need a bid writer for this level of, I think, you know, last time we asked you 3 questions and a little bit of financial information. It's about as light touch as I think anybody could possibly make a grant process. And the thing that'll really make your project shine out is just local knowledge and a passion for what you do and really wanting to make a difference. So yeah, you really don't need a bid writer. Don't worry about that.
It wasn't about bid writing for this. It was like, if we had to go back to, like, if we were
redo your
something
budget
off and then go back to the budget and just do a little bit of work. Just
okay.
Yeah, just it takes a little bit of effort.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But to apply for this, no, not at all.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so to round up, we'll make notes of all this, make the recording available, and where we've said we'd look into a couple of things, we'll include that in the feedback. I think, have we finished? I think so. Yeah. So if no one's got any more questions, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, to thank Julie and Lindsay and Wendy for their amazing support getting this, running this, and sharing all that information. Hopefully we'll be hearing from you in the near future with your bids, and good luck to each and every one who submits an application.
Yeah, thank you everybody. Look forward to continuing to work with as many of you as we possibly can, hopefully. Take care.
Thank you all.